In this video, I'm going to show you how I created this fake rock structure for your lizard cage. First of all, if you're using polystyrene, which is styrofoam, you probably want to use one of these masks. What I've got here is a sheet of polystyrene that I got from a hardware store. What I'm going to do is just freehand draw what I want to be the top plate of that structure. And then with a knife, just cut along the lines you've drawn and cut out your piece that's going to end up being the top of that rock structure. I'm going to set this piece aside and use it later. Once I've got it all cut out, this is sort of an optional stage where you're breaking off some of the pieces of the edges to make it look more rock-like. And with this top piece, you can really see, with breaking off the straight edge, how much it improves the look of it, just to make it look more natural. And I've got, what I'm using is liquid nails. You don't have to use this, but it works really well. I'll go ahead and glue this top piece on. And I created a smaller piece to go on top of that. Increase the look of it. Go ahead and add that. Then I'm going to start creating these steps to create that rock-like staircase that was in the structure. I'm going to create these relatively similar in size. Notice how I'm breaking away these straight edges to make it look more like natural rock. See the straight edge here. So this really isn't requiring any artistic effort. You're just breaking away those straight edges to minimize the right angles in the piece. So I've got 6 different stairs here. I'm going to glue these together in an ascending staircase style. So I finished that, and I've now cut out a new set of 6 stairs, slightly smaller than that other set. You can see at the top of the screen. Glue those together, and then I'm going to glue on my larger set of stairs on one of the sides of the platform. And really the only mistake you can make with these types of projects is mistakenly making it too big to be able to fit back into the cage. So if I had one of these staircases swinging out too far to the right in this case, I might not be able to fit it back into the cage. So it might be a good idea to constantly be putting your structure back into the cage, make sure it's still going to fit. Right here I've got a center support beam post. Since the structure is kind of long, make sure with a heavier lizard that it's not going to start bowing in the middle. With this, that top plate is hanging over some of the stairs, so I'm going to break away some of that. Then we have the grouting process. I've got a non-sanded grout, just add water to, and you want to make sure the first couple coats are thin enough where it's going to get into all of the little crevices. So we've finished the first coat on the underside of the structure. I'll turn it over and start putting it on the top side. Alright, so we've got our first coat. I'm going to start putting the second coat on. It's a little bit thicker. And something you might want to do is get some concrete cement color to add to it for your additional coats. If you have a different coat to your second, third, and fourth coat, if you get pulled away from the project, you'll be able to tell where you've been, where you haven't been, because of the different color. So with this last coat, I've got a sort of burnt reddish orange color, which is going to be close to the final color that I'll end up using anyway. Once I've got all that on there, so a great way of painting your structure is what I've got here is a cheap dollar store water bottle. Put some water in the bottom and some cheap acrylic paint, in this case sort of like a burnt orange. And you can get into some really interesting transparent effects depending on how much you water each layer down, and then putting in different colors. What I've got here is a sponge I've loaded full of sort of a light sandstone color. I'm going to get rid of most of the paint on a paper towel or a rag, called a dry sponge technique, where you barely got any paint left on the sponge. You go back to your structure and just hit the edges of the structure, and it pulls off the paint it needs, gives the fake rock sort of a worn stone look, and gives it some highlights at the same time. This is a quick way of sealing your finished product. You've got, what I'm using here is Mod Podge all-surface sealant, non-toxic. Another water bottle, water it down, and it's just a very quick way of adding sealant. You want to put probably 5 coats of this on there. What I'm doing here is sopping up the excess with a sponge, and I'll wring that out over a non-treated area. You want to put 5 coats on this, maybe the last coat being a non-thinned out coat with a brush in the high traffic areas. What I'm doing here is before the last coat dries, I'm going to sprinkle some fine-grained sand on some of the areas that the lizard is obviously going to need some traction. And then the next day after it's dried, you want to brush away the loose sand that's collected. This is a product if you're wanting to try to buff out the shiny surface that happens as a result of putting the sealant on there. You can see in the middle of the screen that little shiny area. It's a product that's it's like a sponge-like, flexible, fine-grain sanding tool. Found this at a hardware store. And we'll go ahead and put this in the tank. I'm going to use some strong Velcro at least a couple of different places. Put that on the bottom of the tank and then the structure. And there you have it. Your finished product. You officially have no excuse for not putting something interesting into your lizard cage, as it doesn't get much easier than this.